leadership, self-leadership or leadership?
Well, yes.
Or both?
Yes.
Is it the same thing?
It's not the same thing, but they both tie into one another, but one is definitely more pigeonholed.
Why is that funny? Hey guys, this is Josh, Jeff, and Terry, and today we are talking about leadership. Say hi, guys. Do you think that leadership and self-leadership are different? Can you have leadership without self-leadership? That's deep.
Yeah,
that's a good one.
It's deep.
Maybe not true leadership. I mean, you can have a persona of leadership, maybe.
Yeah, well,
how are we going to define leadership?
Is leadership anything but true leadership? Because I've heard people say that leadership is influence, but it's got to be. I think leadership, to me, true leadership has to be influenced in a positive way.
Yes, you're right. Because there's also a difference between leadership and management, right? So, my perspective, right, when you ask that question, is like, well, I can have a boss at work, but that necessarily doesn't mean it's leadership. It just means you're a boss or management, right?
Well, exactly. And when we look at self-leadership, or leadership in general for that matter, I think there's a key component of what type of leadership are you talking about? Are you talking more management leadership, or are you talking about leading by example? And if you're going to lead by example, you've got to start with yourself.
Yeah, I think that we've all had someone in an authoritative leadership, right? And I use that term loosely because it's not. I don't really consider it leadership.
Right.
When you give someone the power to wield some sort of consequence over somebody, I think kind of leadership. You can still be a leader if you use it correctly. But I think that so many times in human nature, right, we lack the ability to maintain that that balance, right? So I feel like leadership really is starts with yourself, regardless of your position of where you are, right? So that positional authority that you have over someone else feeds into your ability to be a strong leader, but it can also wreck you, right?
Yeah, it goes. I mean, we've all talked about it before in various different events that we've been at or had conversations among each other, is the whole idea of servant leadership, right? And you really can't have leadership without that kind of servant heart or that servant mindset behind that. And like you just said, when you have that management type situation where your bosses, that leadership isn't necessarily a servant. They hold your job, or they hold your pay, or they hold your whatever over your head. It's not, you're not following them just because you want to follow them. You're following them because your job, your paycheck, your livelihood, I mean, the food that you put on the table for your kids is all sitting at play with that. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I think that's an excellent point.
Now,
yeah, go ahead, Josh.
With that said, self-leadership, it's you identifying what is available for you that is beyond where you're currently at. And doing that by looking at others for certain. I can look at what you guys have and the fruit on the tree that you guys have produced through your development, and I can look a little bit further down the road and see where I would like to be, help identify areas in my life that I would like to grow in. But then I think there's also that component of just recognizing in your own life, what are the things that you've dreamed of, things that you want to excel in that you haven't accomplished yet, and then helping to figure out, what do I have to do to get those things done? Because you can't necessarily proceed forward at the same level that you're currently at. Something has to change for there to be change. And you don't want to have to rely on other people to get you there. Sometimes you got to know, how do I pick up myself, or where do I go and find the resources to help myself instead of being dependent on others.
Josh, if you can come up with phrases like something has to change for there to be change, you could write a leadership book.
Absolutely.
I was used to make fun of. I love John Maxwell's stuff, but all his maxims are like that. It's like one is never going to be a bigger number than two. I'm making fun.
So deep.
Yeah.
Yes.
But those things are true, right?
Yeah.
Right? In order to change, you have to change, right? Because a lot of times we expect, and I think as you guys were talking about that stuff, it reminded me of like what Chris Brady and Orrin Woodward say is that a leader needs to be hungry, honorable, and honorable, right?
Yeah.
I was going to say honest, but honorable, same thing, right? So, but that hunger component of it then we're talking about positional authority. If you don't have that hunger component in your leadership, that positional authority will circumvent that and cause you to be lazy. And then that's when you lose your leadership. And I think one of the admirable things about people who are really strong leaders, like Owen and some of these guys that we've studied, is they are never resting. They are always pursuing moving forward, regardless of who they're leading. They're doing their best to lead anybody that wants to follow. But regardless of that, and you guys are great examples of this too, is over the time when I've helped mentor you in different areas or different things, or we've helped each other. But we're never waiting for someone to catch up. We're never waiting for someone to do something. We're always on our own. How can I learn more? How can we borrow books from each other? We've asked each other questions and all that kind of stuff. So I admire that about you guys, and I think it's a great. It's always good to be around an environment of people that is where there's a positive peer pressure to perform, to do better, to want to move ahead.
Well, I think you brought up a good point. Some of that self-leadership is putting yourself in a position where you're surrounded by others who are growing themselves as well. We've learned over the many years that community is a huge component of growth, and it's both the accountability piece, it's the example piece, but it's also just being in the pool. If you get into a pool and there's a whole bunch of people running in one direction and you jump in, you're naturally going to flow in the direction that pool's already spinning. But at some point, you spinning in that direction, you're going to want to become part of what's making that direction go. You still have to make that decision on your own, I think, but getting in that environment is going to put you in a position to make that decision a whole lot better than sitting on your couch eating potato chips.
But that is attractive.
I was going to say, especially the Doritos. Nothing wrong with Doritos.
I know. That's part of it's funny, but it's true that life distracts us with couches and potato chips, right, or Doritos.
Only to the sweet chili ones.
The sweet chili ones. Jeff does like some sweet chili chip. Yes.
I'm partial to Cool Ranch because that was monumental in my lifetime. the advent of Cool Ranch Doritos, but. So that being, I have a question for you guys, and you, Josh, you bring in a good point. So we're talking about self-leadership and some of the, characteristics of it. But how do you do it? What do you do? You mentioned community. What other areas do you do the right things to propel yourself or to stay hungry?
Well, let me throw a definition that I kind of have been throwing around in the last couple of days as we've been thinking about this topic. So a definition, when I take a look at self-leadership, is: do I know that I'm doing the right thing when nobody is watching? Because I think at the end of the day, that's what self-leadership really does start to boil down to, is like, what am I doing to myself? And am I holding even myself accountable? Because you guys don't always know what I do on a day-to-day basis, nor even does my wife. Does my knife?
I have you on Google Tracker.
Do you?
I do know what you do.
Yeah, oh, perfect. I might have to fix that. But like, did I read the 30 minutes that day that I said I was going to do? Did I get in my Bible for the 20 minutes I said I was going to do? Did I listen to the 2 audios? Did I eat the way I said, right? All that stuff goes down, for me, down to the very core of self-leadership. It's that, am I doing those basic things that I said that I was going to do, right? Which I think also requires some vision. I have to see something out in front of me to know that, why do I want to get better? Why do I want to grow? And then it's holding myself accountable to those things. And that's really, for me, where self-leadership really starts. And I mess up in those areas, every one of those that I just mentioned multiple times. There's by no means am I perfect in any one of those areas, especially the eating part. I mean, just to be real, right? I mean, that one, out of all of them, is one of the hardest ones for me to just stick to the daily habits of that. But no, for me, for self-leadership, that's really, really what it boils down to for me, is, am I doing those things that I said I was going to do to get me to the vision, or to get me to the place where God wants me to be in life, to do it. And it's only me that can control that.
So I hear 2 different paths that we're going down. One is the discipline to do the things, and the other one that I was kind of looking to talk a little bit about is, what are those things? And you mentioned some of them. So Josh, I'm gonna pick one of those and expand.
Yep. No. And when Jeff mentioned you have to have the vision first in order to know, hey, I need to hold myself accountable to these things. It's setting that vision, having those goals, having that. What is that hunger? Why do I even care about having some things that I want to improve in? Am I pursuing something financially? Am I pursuing something of material value? Or there's the ziggurat that Chris Brady writes about, talking about, you've got to know what your purpose is, and ultimately you're leading into your legacy and kind of building up upon each other. And if you can find out, and you had mentioned it, what is your God-given purpose? What is it I was put on this planet to do? Coming from a Christian worldview.
Well, all of us are. Us three, right?
Absolutely. That where do I need to be focusing on so that I'm improving and so I'm making strides to move forward towards accomplishing that? Because I'm never going to accomplish what I was put on earth to do. Again, going back to the example, if I'm just sitting around watching TV, there's nothing wrong with watching TV sometimes for entertainment and rejuvenation purposes per se, but it's not going to move me forward. And that hunger of pursuing that path of am I getting better? Well, maybe not, but why does it matter? Well, ultimately it matters because we would look at it potentially from, because we're pursuing God's value in our life, but all of those things play into each other, I think. So you've got to start with where am I going and why am I going there?
Yeah, so you added a third aspect to it, right?
Sorry.
The vision, you started with the vision, but then you got the discipline to do the things, but you also have the things that you're doing. Because you can have discipline to do things, but are they the right things, right?
Yes.
So I think that, and Jeff, I'll let you take the actual activities, right? So but I want to touch on just the discipline part of it, right? So you got to have the activities, and you can mention some of that stuff for good self-leadership or leadership in general, but the discipline to do those things, because just knowing those activities doesn't get you anywhere, right? We've all had things where we want to eat healthier, or we want to improve in some area of finances or spiritual life or different things like that. So the discipline to do it, right? So ultimately, there are some people out there that are unbelievably disciplined, right? If you look at some of the bodybuilders and some of the different people who are in different studies and the amazing ability they have to just focus in and just dig into things and stay disciplined with it. Yeah. But self-discipline is really difficult, right? Because again, we got the Doritos and the couches that are there for distractions, and I think that a couple different ways of doing that obviously is at least from my Christian. Actually, not even just Christian. I think everybody needs this aspect in their life. You need the Holy Spirit in your life to be able to draw on, to be able to have that sense of purpose in your life, to understand that there is an ultimate goal that you're working for. There's a value that has been placed inside of us that we want to strive for, right?
Absolutely.
And the other aspect of it too, I think, is God put us in a community. So, Josh, just like you talked about, is being around other people, like-minded people that are also willing to go, hey, I'm working on my leadership journey too, and then you can make yourself self-accountable. And you guys have been great with that in different areas too, where you say, hey, this is what I'm going to do, and then you've told someone else. So now, when you fail yourself, you can go, I don't want to let the other person down, even though you shouldn't want to let your own self down. But until you can get to that point, you have other people that you can aspire to work with also.
So allowing yourself to have that accountability with someone else, which requires some vulnerability.
Oh, yeah,
absolutely, right. And
definitely.
so
It's scary.
It is scary, but it is extraordinary. I mean, Terry, how many times have we done something along the lines of where we did a diet together?
Never.
Right? Yeah, right. Never. That's not the case. I could remember 2 different races that I was suckered into. The triathlon, I mean, the very first one, over 5 or 6 years ago, and I think maybe I suckered you into the marathon.
Yeah, exactly. So I suckered you into a 3-mile run, and you suckered me into a 26-mile run.
Okay, fair enough.
I was the higher level sucker.
Fair enough. But it just goes to show the accountability, right? Because we've had those communications behind it. But so talking about the what to do, right? I mean, we could go into all kinds of different areas in here, but what do we? And I'll tie back into what Josh has, right? What we do ties into the vision of what we want to go, of where we're going to go. And for me personally, I know that I need to be in God's Word every day or close to every day, continuing that relationship with Him. I mean, how can I teach my kids or other people or the stuff as we talk about apologetics or anything else on this podcast? How else are we going to be able to do that if we're not in the Word ourselves, right? Things like reading. What good book am I reading? Am I doing something to improve myself mentally in that aspect? Am I listening to audios from good people, whether it's podcasts, or whether it's, I don't know, just an audio that you have laying around your house that talks about some leadership perspective, or a preacher talking about something on the Gospels? I don't know what it is. Whatever, something that we can continually learn. Are we eating right? Are we drinking the right amount of water? Are we getting the right amount of exercise? I mean, those are all things that we can put in our daily work. And there's tons of other things, and instead of depending on the vision in which we want to go. I mean, maybe you are into bodybuilding, and maybe a part of your routine is that you have to do a certain amount of working out. Yeah, Terry is definitely into the bodybuilding. part of it. But yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of things, but those things will be dependent upon the vision, which Josh was talking about.
Well, I think a big piece to remember is you don't have to try to tackle everything all at once. Part of good self-leadership is identifying the next best thing to address that's going to get you the progress that you're looking for, and being able to boil down those bigger visions into smaller chunks and goals. Speaking for myself, that's something that I can kind of see a big picture oftentimes, and then I look at this gigantic list of things that I have to improve in, or things I have to accomplish in order to get to that vision, and it can get overwhelming, almost to the point of analysis paralysis. And you guys have seen me go through this multiple times, and you've helped me be able to boil it down to, okay, well, what's one thing that if you focused on it and you put in the effort, you'd see a result from it, and that could spawn and help you kick off the next piece.
Yeah.
So actually, I think that's a really good segue. Let's go into attitude, because I think that probably plays a big part into self-leadership.
Before we do that, what do you think our running time has been so far?
I don't know. I'm going to guess we're sitting right around 6 or 7 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. That's cool. That's perfect. Just checking. I felt like we were going longer than that, but I want to make sure we don't go,
Yeah, I would say we're right around 6 or 7
All right,
minutes.
well, hurry up. Let's go.
I can't see what the...
It doesn't have a timer.
Oh, does that have a timer up there?
No.
Oh, I thought about
I'm
it a couple
watching
times. We could have put a
I'm
thing.
watching the clock.
Oh, are you? Okay.
Oh,
cool.
nice. Hey, that's
See?
why I put that there.
That's why Josh is the smartest out of all of us.
Yeah, I agree.
Right.
So, attitude.
Yeah.
I don't want to talk about attitude. I'll let somebody else talk about it.
I'll talk about a little bit about it.
Yeah,
You guys-
you've done Terry's done a fantastic job of being able to be purposeful and having a good attitude. And
Right.
so I think, you should absolutely take that.
Well, I was thinking of, because I've struggled with it so much. Talk about it, but,
That's not, that wasn't my thought.
the concept here is that everybody struggles with attitude,
Yeah.
because stuff happens. But I do know that I have been around positive information long enough and the right kind of thinking long enough, and forced myself or disciplined myself to try to think the right way long enough that it is really easy for me to not let circumstances affect my attitude. I can have issues where I'm trying to, like, I got to fix that, or oh no, that went wrong, or oh shoot, that kind of stuff. But I don't have the really low lows or that kind of stuff anymore. People talk about low lows and high highs, and I still have high highs, but I never get I don't go into the depression mode or stuff like that. And I think a lot of that stems from listening to the right kind of things. One, because it helps you not talk yourself out of onto the ledge and jumping, right? But two, also it just reinforces the attitudes that you are trying to instill inside yourself, listening to the right things, reading the right things, being around the right people, and that kind of stuff. The other thing that helped me tremendously, and Jeff wrote a blog article recently about creeds and values in our life, and it made me flip back to this, that I want to do it again, is for many years I had a positive affirmation. That might sound kind of hokey, but it was just something I read to myself or said to myself eventually, because I memorized it really quickly. And it was just basically a little mantra that helped me reinforce how I wanted to live my life. Part of it was just like, today is the greatest day in the world to have to be alive, and no one in the world has a better attitude than me today. I'll greet each person and opportunity I meet today. I greet them with love, respect, opportunity, and confidence, right? And all these different things I would say, and there was more to it than that. But it was just where I wanted to go and how I wanted to live my life. And all that just to say that, and you guys made a testimony to this, that I feel like I do a pretty good job. I can always do more, I can always improve, but I feel like I do a pretty good job just keeping a good attitude. Right now, the one spot I would say is very difficult is when you have kids and you try to teach them the same thing. You can't just teach it to somebody because you know it. Right? They have to figure it out on their own.
It's all internalized.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. It's like, hey, I know the secret to this. Here it is. I can tell you a million times, but until something clicks inside, and I have some older kids who are starting to get it. Well, one of them for sure. Two of them that are still working.
And to the
through
two of you that are watching this, we'll let you figure out which one it is.
Yes.
So, three of them, hopefully.
Yeah, three of them. Yes. For the two older.
But yeah. But you guys know it's all about you got to figure that out yourself, right? So I don't know how you guys have handled your attitude, because I got to the point where it really became ingrained in me that good stuff was going to happen and bad stuff was going to happen, regardless of how I responded to it. So, and I've also had this thought many times. It's for some reason our human nature. It's super easy for me to be in a good mood, something bad happened, and I can immediately go into a bad mood. And if I can move from good to bad just like that, I should have the power to move from bad to good. Although my brain does not want to do that. It wants to stay down here and be mad or miserable or upset. But I should be able to immediately go with it. Especially with stuff, I find, with stuff like with your spouse. It's like if you're mad or upset about something or having a discussion, it's really hard to go, hey, let's go back to being happy with each other. But all it is a mental decision to do it, right?
All it is, yeah.
Well, I think a big part of that is just what is your normal self-talk? You know, that's something that I've struggled with my entire life. And if you're constantly, like Terry said, if you have a positive affirmation statement that you're repeating over and over in your head, there is actual neuroscience behind the neural pathways that get created and the positive changes that it literally carves new channels through your brain to get you to be able to flip from a negative attitude to a positive attitude far more quickly. It's almost natively programmed to go that way. If you're not so much always in a positive mental mindset or telling yourself positive things or pursuing something that's of a positive nature, it's a lot easier to kind of slowly, it's not always all at once, it's a lot easier to sometimes slip slowly over time, and then all of a sudden you wake up one day and you're just in a bad mood, and it's a lot harder to get yourself out of that. But like these guys have both said, if you're in good books, if you're listening to good audio series, if you're positively talking about things that you're going to pursue and reminding yourself of what's coming, hanging out with awesome people like these guys, it's a lot easier to make that transition from having a bad day to it doesn't matter. The day is going to be however I tell myself it's going to be.
Yep.
So there are two things that I can think of, because the question that you asked was, what do we do, right? How do we keep that good attitude? So there's two questions that I ask myself, honestly, very routinely, because I have to check it quite frequently. But one of I say my main go-to question is this going to matter 1 month, 1 year, 3 years, 5 years from now? Is why I am angry or have a bad attitude really going to matter? The toys being on the floor, the extra dishes in the sink, the vacuum not being put away the way it should, right? With the cord hanging out all over the place, right? Drives me insane.
Are you doing this for Tina?
No, I mean, those are things that bug me. So Tina's my wife, by the way. And so these are common occurrences in their house. But those are the things that I know that for me, I've got to bring myself back to that. So if it's not going to matter 1 month from now, heck, 1 week from now, in most of those areas, why should I let it bug me? So when we talk about tangible things, a tangible thing that I could do is when you feel yourself going down there is asking a question like that. Pattern interrupt it. Just saying, hey, is this really going to matter? And that a lot of times for me is enough to be able to get me to go, whoop, flip that and say, okay, nope, we're going to address this right away.
Make that noise one more time.
I don't know why I need to make it one more time, but
I liked it.
And then the second way is when we were running marathons, I always had a little mantra.
Wait. When we were running marathons?
Marathon. Well, you've ran 2 of them. I've trained for 3 and ran 1. I'm including my training then. Okay, to be fair. Because it was always when we were doing training, right?
No, I realized you're reason that up is because you said suckered you into running a marathon. You actually suckered me into running a marathon, then you bailed on me.
Not the first one.
The second one, though.
The second one, well, I hurt myself.
And the third one.
Notice I have not recorded any of this.
Actually, the second one you ran the end of it with me and purposely beat me right at the end. Remember that?
No, I did not purposely beat you.
You finished like a second before.
It was not my intent. Not my intent. I promise it was not my intent. But you are correct. That's the one where I, ran the first 8 blocks, got off, got in the car, drove a ways, that was.
There's something to be said about that because being somebody to support you in your community is those every few miles you ran with me was like this. You looked forward to it.
Well, as a matter of fact, the comment to me was we had to change the last meeting point by almost a mile because of how the traffic was. So we told Terry that we would be at a certain location, and when we weren't there, it was like another mile
that
up
was
the
an attitude. I had to check my attitude.
So Terry, where have you been? We were supposed to see you a mile.
I don't think I was able to.
Well, fair enough. You were at mile 24 of a marathon, or
severe depression.
Yeah. But anyway, the other one that I use a lot is who is telling me this about myself or about my attitude, right? there is evil that intentionally tries to mess with us.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm going to keep going because the only person that can break me is me. I am not going to let evil break me. So when I can bring that in, if I'm really having a bad attitude, why am I having the bad attitude? Who is inputting that bad thought, that bad attitude into me? I guarantee it's not good. Good isn't going to do that. It's going to be evil that does that. And for us in the Christian worldview, we would say that, that would be the devil or Satan or some evil thought that has been planted in there of that same nature. And so bringing that back up is just being like, okay, who's it putting me in? If I'm not going to let that evil win in my life, then I can't let it. I've got to recognize that evil. So those are my two things, right? Asking yourself, is this going to matter? And then, who am I fighting? Am I fighting evil here? Or what am I really fighting?
Yeah, that's a good point. So,
I think we've given them plenty of nuggets.
yeah, I was going to say, do we have anything
There's-
else that we needed to touch
Sure,
base on?
there's
Or is
like
that-
12 more points on this piece of paper.
All right, well, so we're done.
We're done.
So anyway, this is Josh, Jeff, and Terry, and we were talking about leadership today, and we appreciate you guys tuning in. So say goodbye, guys.
Leave no doubt.
Bye.
You didn't say goodbye.
Bye.